Hello, everyone, and welcome to the end of the year taping for all the three shows I do. Tracy Takes On, The Progressive Queens, and Thursdays with Tracy. I'm joined by my panelists, Charles and Theus. Guys, say hello to everybody that's watching today.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
So there's not much to talk about per se. So this is going to be kind of a different show. I got something I really want to, no, I got two things I want to talk about. One of them doesn't necessarily have to do with politics, but I think there's a lot of politics in this situation. And another one, Miss HRC, she will not go away. And to that, good night. And I might talk about the January 6th thing. Matter of fact, I probably will. So I want to start off with Deion Sanders, someone that the audience may not be familiar with. He's a football player, and now he's a coach at a historically Black college. Well, he recruited the top player in high school. This player was number one across everybody's boards. They have him garnered as an NFL prospect. He had originally committed to Florida State, but he changed his mind, and now he's committed to Jackson State, where Deion coaches. And I found it particularly disturbing at some of the texts that he's getting, especially by the media, as to why would he go to a HBCU? He's not going to have an NFL career, and just questioning his decision. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it, because I was really, really angry when I saw these texts and these emails, I mean, especially on Facebook, talking about, well, why would you go to a HBCU? I'm like, it's a college like every other college, isn't it?
Charles, you want to go first, sir?
No, not really. I mean, as far as sports is concerned, no. But it's not that, nothing to say that that's going to keep him out of the NFL. You know, you look at, what was his name? The quarterback for the Washington's team.
Doug Williams.
Yeah, he went to a HBC college.
So did Walter Payton. So did Jerry Rice.
So, you know, that's just more hate just coming out, you know. I'm not, you know, maybe he's gonna get an education. I don't know, you know, did he say why he changed his mind from going to Florida State?
He said, well, everybody knows Florida State is awful this year. I mean, awful, awful, awful. But he said he wanted to experience what it was like to go to a historically Black college. And he appreciated the tradition of the HBCU, and he wanted to be educated in an HBCU.
And that sounds, I mean, that sounds good to me. You know, why you got to go to a white college to be bona fide or verified his career? You know, he can do just as good going to where he's going now. I think he'll even probably appreciate it even more.
Yeah. And the thing is, you look like you just ready to go. You just ready to get in.
This is continuing in a thought process I've had for a couple of years now. And you know, it's funny when you humble yourself and take a step back, you realize that no new idea is a new idea, right? So I look at all of the radical things, or quote unquote radical things, that I focus on, even more the more pragmatic things that I focus on. And the more I study, I come across those of my ancestors and my elders who have already had these same ideas. So I've been talking for years about, wouldn't it be great for more of our top Black athlete talent to forego your big name college teams and go to the HBCUs, because white America is really just focused on the money, the entertainment, the wealth that circles around these athletes, not the athletes themselves. So if more of the top talent goes to HBCUs or goes to even PWIs that aren't as popular, then the money will flow there, which will improve those schools. So I'm sitting here looking at this thing like this could be the next step in a very good thing. Now we'll see how it actually manifests, because I believe it was 2 seasons ago, because Tracy, I don't follow sports anymore. But I believe it was maybe 2 seasons ago where the NFL, in reprisals for what happened following the Kaepernick and everything else, they took 0 athletes out of the HBCU and took them into the pros.
Yeah.
And that was a punishment because that was the same year that a whole class of Black athletes went HBCU. They didn't go PWI. So there was a backlash there where, to me, that was the message being sent. Oh, you want to buck the system? Cool. None of you go. Right. So now you have a top prospect who's doing it this year. And what if he is the dam breaking? And now next season we get more. And then 2-3 seasons from now, you start seeing much more lucrative sponsorship deals coming to these HBCUs from these major corporations that have been sending money elsewhere. I don't care if you ever let the HBCUs be part of your NCAA Pro Bowl championship thing. I don't care. I would love to just see us stop pretending that someone else's ice is colder and begin to actually build our institutions off of our talents. We've been cashing the guilt check for so long that it's always been deficient. Well, now let's play their game. The moment they opened the door for athletes to get paid for their likeness, it made it possible for Deion to recruit this young man to come play in Mississippi.
And I think part of it has to do with the fact that he's Deion Sanders. I think that played a big
definitely helps
role in it, because Deion Sanders did not go to a historically Black college. He went to Florida State. That's where he went. Not to say he can't coach, but I wonder, as much as I think this is a great thing, I wonder, will there be backlash as you see more Black athletes going to these HBCUs, if that happens, which I hope it does? What are the other colleges going to do? Are they going to whine and pout and say, hey, NFL, don't pick them. Look at our historic program.
It's already started. Within hours of that young man choosing to go to Jackson State instead of Florida State, there was legislation being pushed through to basically curb the amount of money or how these athletes can get paid because of this situation. And guess what school is sponsoring that new push?
I would guess Florida State.
And they claim that it's coincidental.
Oh, wait a minute. This is in Florida. This is just in Florida, right? The state that
it was just in Florida, I believe, but it's something that they're hoping to spread out. Everything that we're fighting with it's about ideology and principalities to me. And because if you allow everything to be a one-off situation, you miss the overall story. Because these one-offs are happening in all these different states at all these different levels. That's coordinated. And we have to fight things as such. So I'm as much as I could care less about football and I want football to go away. Sorry, football fans. I like this momentum.
Yeah, I'm a big, huge football fan. It's not going anywhere. We're gonna just keep watching. And another thing I don't like is, like, how are they suggesting that the HBCU schools aren't as good? Sure, they don't have as much money. We know that all the money's going to the Alabamas, the Notre Dames, the Michigans, etc. But how do they then take that and say, oh, well, you're not going to get as much exposure. You're not. Are they saying that Black?
They're saying the quiet part out loud.
The schools, the Black HBCU schools, they're gonna have to go and beat these teams.
Okay. But if they never put them on their schedule, how can they beat them?
Yeah, sure, they're on their schedule somewhere. You might not see the game, but they don't just play BU schools, okay? They get on somebody's schedule.
Okay, let me put it like this. I haven't seen Notre Dame play at HBCU. I haven't seen Michigan play at HBCU. I haven't seen Alabama play at HBCU.
Yeah, they're a whole different collegiate league.
Them top 25,
Well,
they not gonna play at HBCU.
What is their division? Are they in the same division?
Their
Nope.
division, no, they're not in the same division. And that's the other problem. So if they're a Division II school, let's just say they're Division II, well, why would a Division I school even put them on the schedule?
Maybe they should move to become a Division I school. They can do that.
And see, I actually have a different opinion. I would rather they not.
Yeah,
They
right where you're at.
Because see, first of all, we live in America, and no matter how we want to pretend America's different than what it is what it is. So why is it that they are painting this picture that going to an HBCU is less than? Because that's how we treat everything. If you go to a Black private school, it's considered one-off. If you go to a Black business, it's considered one-off. If you have a Black attorney, it's considered one-off. That's America, right? So they have separated the leagues in such a way that HBCUs play in their own conference. They don't have anything to do with these big schools. And so the money doesn't flow their way. But here's where it goes into my concerns with football as a sport. It's too easy to get hurt in football.
Yeah,
and no matter what protections you put in place, you can't stop the brain injuries and the neck injuries and the back and the knee injuries. And if you have different recruiting classes, which we do, you get your biggest, strongest, most powerful players going into these Division I schools. And then you have your HBCUs and your other conferences, like what Princeton plays in and stuff, right? Where these guys, they play football, but their real aspirations are something completely different.
right.
So you put Alabama against Morehouse, someone's getting hurt. So
Yeah,
I
because
don't want them together. And I also
because-
want to elevate the HBCU class so that they can get elevated from playing in high school football fields and be able to play in massive stadiums like you would get at a Notre Dame or a Michigan or something like that.
Right, and that's where the whole, as much as I love the move by the young man to play for HBCU, the public just does not support HBCUs the way it should.
Make it more attractive, and they will.
No, that I was just about to get to that point. I was about to get to that point. Because I knew Deion Sanders was coaching Jackson State because, again, I followed football. I didn't know until recently about this recruit that had promised to go to Florida State, which is an awful school in terms of football. I don't think they've won a game in like 2 years. Maybe they've won one or two.
Yeah, they've been bad for a while.
Florida State's not that bad. Okay.
I mean,
You're talking about Jackson or Florida State?
Florida State. I didn't think they had won that many games.
Florida State's not the powerhouse they used to be, but they aren't at the bottom either. Okay.
Yeah, because I would think, like, if a recruit said, I'm going to Alabama because I'm using the school that's above the cream of the crop, so I'm just going with the #1 team in the nation. And then he says, no, I'm going to go to Morehouse instead. That to me would be like, oh, wait a minute. I better, and not to say Jackson State is good. I'm not saying that. But I think part of me thinks the more players that you get doing that, it's going to be better for the HBCUs. I just wonder what's going to happen to them. What steps are the NFL going to take to keep them out? Or will it get to the point where the NFL's like, okay, it's too many of them going to the HBCUs. We better start telling, coaching scouts, hey, you need to go see this game. Hey, you need to go see this game.
If it's sustained, then we'll get to what you just said. But at first, they're going to try to break this momentum because there's a very strong pipeline already established with these other schools.
Exactly.
So what's happening now is essentially it's bucking the system. It's creating a hiccup. And in the beginning of any kind of change is resisted. So at first, they're going to try to mess up your scouting opportunities, your recruiting opportunities, your sponsorship deals, how much money you can get paid being an athlete at an HBCU versus being an athlete at, say, Alabama, right? They're going to play all of those games. And the athletes who take that stand for those last 2 years, like I said, this gentleman here, the next recruiting class, if that sustains into the next recruiting class and maybe even the next one, we'll get to what you just said, Tracy, because now Nike will start sending money there. Adidas will start sending money there. Everybody will start sending money where the talent is.
Yeah, because now it's pretty.
Right now, you're trying to mess with somebody's pockets, and they're not going to just lay down and take that.
That's right. And it boils down, it's all about money. I mean, it will come. The easiest way to break a movement is to buy off the people. Okay. And like I say, I don't know why he's going to to Jackson. I don't, that's his reasons. Is it to become a movement, or this is just a personal choice? Because if it's not a movement, I just don't see other players following. Yeah, that would be great if they did, but.
Well, the president's already there. We had the previous, like Theus was saying, you already had a previous class that was going to the HBCUs. We're just talking about this one player, but he's not the only.
He's not the only one.
He's not the only one. We're focusing on him because basically Deion Sanders is the coach.
This also expands. I'm sorry.
Is that diluting the
schools?
The white schools? The players going to the white schools, are they still going there? I mean,
I believe overwhelmingly they absolutely are.
They could be going to the school because they know they'll get playing time.
And that's where I think. Go ahead.
If I may, what I was going to say though is we also have to look at the social dynamic that all this is happening in. This is happening in the backdrop of a new 60s era mentality for our young people. You are seeing academically, not just in sports, where a lot of top prospect academic students are going HBCU because the entire climate out here is so adversarial and so unpleasant. I'm trying to use the right terms for respect for my sister. So they are choosing to go HBCU because one, the academic rigor at an HBCU is as good, if not better, than you get at many of your PWIs. And then on top of that, you don't have to be worried about I had a decent experience when I was in college, but I went to a PWI that the school itself was pretty much it was overwhelmingly white. Okay. So being on a hall.
And what does PWI stand for?
Predominantly white institution.
Okay, thank you.
So being on a hall where you're like one or two or maybe even three out of 100 students, that was weird then, but it didn't much matter because it was the 90s. Now, that's a matter of safety and comfort as well. So the schools are getting much more students coming in that way. They're starting to get more attention from their athletes as well. And that's, I think, all happening on the backdrop of the social dynamics that we're dealing with. We simply don't want to be around an overwhelmingly white group of people.
And you know what else is really, really annoying about this whole thing that I just found disturbing? Oh, well, Deion's got to be paying him something, but why can't he get paid? You're going to sit here and tell me that no PWI, using Theus's term, isn't giving some of their students money under the table? You can miss me with that.
They do that to us every time. But the funny thing is, Jackson State ain't got no money to give nobody anything. And we don't have boosters to really give money like that either. But the thing is, now these athletes are able to get paid off of their likeness.
Anyway.
So now you don't have to pay them. You don't have to send money under the table to their parents. They're
Yeah, but
getting paid.
But just to hear the accusation, I'm like, really? You're gonna really sit here and say that? You're gonna really go with that?
It's just hate, and it's about money, because who's spending all this money for all this entertainment? You know, it's not Black people spending it, it's white people spending it. So yeah, they want the best talent out there. They see, wow, this guy was going to Florida State, now he's going to a Black college, and you know, I don't know. You know, if they were smart, maybe they'd go and watch a game at a Black college and see the talent there.
Yeah, just for the
That's-
basic alone.
That's the
Yeah.
game right there. What you just named, that's the whole package. Because Dion going to coach at Jackson State automatically put Jackson State on the map.
Automatic.
Then he made them a better performing school at the same time.
Yeah.
Now he's stealing prospects. So when these people start going to look at this guy, because now the curiosity's there. They ain't really worried about this guy, but the curiosity is going to be there now. So more people are going to want to watch him at Jackson State. Ignore all the rest of the HBCUs, but they'll want to see that. And they'll realize it's really hard to find our games.
Yeah.
What was Dion's record? I don't know.
11-1. They're 11. Yeah, they're 11-1.
Okay.
And they're playing in a bowl game today.
Okay. Against
Which they're leading in.
And what kind of bowl? You know,
Well, it's not a PWI bowl.
There's an HBCU bowl.
It's an HBC bowl, and it happens every year. But this is the first year it actually sold out in a huge stadium. That had never happened before. The name of the team that they are playing, oh boy, I didn't even focus on the other team.
It's called Celebration Bowl.
Yeah, Celebration Bowl. But what's the name of the other team they're playing?
South Carolina State.
Yeah, that's their names. I was like, wait a minute. They're playing who? Yes, South Carolina State.
Yeah.
And they're leading right now. So if the lead holds, he'll be 12-1. That school was not 12-1 last year. I can guarantee that. Guarantee.
I'm loving it. I am loving it.
Yeah,
anything that makes them folks feel bad and question their structures. See, we can keep crying about equality and justice and all that stuff. An unjust culture will never deliver justice. A broken system will not fix itself. But you find out what tools and mechanism makes those cultures function. And in America, it's money, power, violence. Those are only three things. Well, we aren't ready for violence. We ain't got the power. Start playing with the money, because people want to be entertained. They need to be distracted from this thing that's crushing all of us, no matter what your background is. Sports is that outlet. Move the money, you'll get more viewership.
Yep. And I was like, hey, for just the bands alone, I'll watch just for that. I may ignore the whole game, but I'm going to be watching that band. I'll tell you right now, I know that's petty, but I'm watching for the band too. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
What I used to do is just watch it for the bands for years. You know, I mean, that was pretty much the game.
Yeah.
Most of the students there were watching it for the bands.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, just for the bands by themselves, I'm like, put them up against somebody.
So now think about this. You get more money in because you're getting more talent that people want to see. So now you get more endorsement deals that come into the school. Now you can start playing a similar game that the PWIs do. Their football program and their basketball programs basically fund baseball, swimming, crew, anything else they have.
Track and field, yep.
So now HBCUs will be able to do the same thing. They'll be able to put more money into women's basketball. They'll be able to put more money into women's volleyball. They'll be able to put more money into all these different things. Now you're starting to get more money in the school, even behind those. So you're able to recruit more top academic talent who do some of those other activities to come play at your school. Next thing you know, you have more of us, because right now HBCUs generate more of our Black doctors, vets, and lawyers than any other schools, any other structure.
Yeah.
You'll get more of us now. Now think about what grows out of that. You see what I mean? So it's like this could really be the beginning of something huge, which is us finally taking some more of the power of what we deliver most to this country, which is entertainment, and using that entertainment to grow what we need to actually be sustainable.
Yeah.
I'm happy, but this is where I'm at though.
Yeah, we know where you at. So we're gonna move on to our next topic. And I'm gonna let you guys go first because I got so many thoughts on this. Will somebody tell Hillary Clinton to go away? Tell her to go away. If you aren't aware, audience, she is being she's doing a master class. And she's of course being paid to do it. And one of the things she decided to do was to read what would have been her acceptance speech if she had won the presidency. And I get it. She talked about her mother. And of course, I didn't say those tears are fake, but they didn't exactly look real to me. But I'm not here to say they weren't fake, anything like that. But she got a point to the video, and I wish I had the clip to show you all. But YouTube hits us now, so we can't show the clip of her essentially blaming the voters for her not being elected. I got some thoughts on that, but I'm gonna let you guys go first.
She blames, you said she
blamed, it seemed to me she was blaming the voters for her not winning the presidency. Technically, she won because she won the popular vote, and but she did not win the electoral college.
Well, I mean, I guess she got a point. Yeah, if you don't vote for somebody, then I guess they won't win. So yeah, I guess she got a point there, but why? The thing is why they didn't vote for her. I had a problem because she's just for the rich. I still have a problem going back to the crime bill that she supported going around the states as the first lady. She just got too much baggage. The whole Clinton family just has too much baggage for her to be the president. I think if she had been the president, the Republicans would have subjected her to the same treatment that they subjected, that the Democrats subjected Trump to. It was just one crook just cheated better than the other crook. That's how she lost, because Trump was the better crook. So,
what say you?
Well, nothing's very cut and dry, I would say. So one, as we've talked about before, Tracy, on paper, I don't think anybody could step to her as far as her credentials to be a president of the United States. That being said, we ain't talking about a paper game. We're talking about reality. And I don't like her. I don't like her whole family. And I don't like who she came from. But
put Chelsea in there, and she's not even a politician.
Hey, whatever. I'm sorry. But the thing about her, I'm like, look, she is the brand of the Democratic Party. She is the corporate moderate Dem. She did lose because of she lost because of the Midwest. The Democrats have, and she and her husband and those she's put in place, because these are all her acolytes. Like, this is all the people who are in power are tied to the Clintons. Okay. So they're the ones who took their eye off of taking care of working class Americans, no matter where they come from. They're the ones who lost any level of appeal to industry workers and retail workers, and everybody except farmers, because ain't much you can really do. Most of them run conservative because I don't know, maybe they live out in the middle of nowhere and don't run into nobody. But the Democratic Party did to themselves what the problem was. And so I agree with her that it is the voters' fault that she didn't win on a technical basis because they didn't vote for her in the Midwest. But she overwhelmingly won the popular vote. So it wasn't that she was a terrible candidate. She was just a bad candidate for us. So,
Yeah.
hey, is she supposed to just not speak? Is she supposed to not cash in on her position in the party? Nah, get your money, do your thing, because that's how this system works. I know that's not the topic, but I'm more irritated with old boy Barry, who
Yeah. Now
is playing a similar game when he was the one that everybody told people like me to be quiet and just be cool, because once he gets out of office, he'll really start to talk.
No, what he did was get himself a Netflix deal.
But he ain't nothing. But
Open a house
he is nothing but another
Hamptons.
corporate.
I mean, not the Hamptons. Yeah, the Hamptons. Here's my 10,000 problems with the one we call Hillary. Girl, if you don't sit yourself down somewhere, we didn't want you before. We didn't like you when you were first lady. We did not like you when you were Secretary of State. We don't like you now. I wish, I agree with you partially, make your money. So if you want to say, hey, I lost, and here's why I lost, and then teach your class on, find out what your negatives are and address your negatives, I would have been all for it. But it's like she refuses to acknowledge why it is she lost. And this is a larger problem for the Democratic Party, because if I hear one more rumor of her running in 2024, I promise you, I'm going to throw up. I don't want to hear anything about her running in 2024.
Yeah, no more legacies.
I can't.
I don't think she's gonna run.
I think she's ready, set, and to go. I think she's just waiting for Biden to just say he won't run, although pretty much I think he's going to run. So if he runs again, she won't run because that's going to look stupid for her to seek the nomination. But if he says, oh, I'm going to retire because my age, she's in. She has jumped Kamala, Pete Buttigieg, all of them. She's jumped them all clearly. All of them. But it depends on whether Biden runs or not. Because if he says, I don't want to do it, then she's definitely in. Now, if he says, oh, I'm going to run again, then she's particularly out because she's just out.
And what's sad about all of that? It really points at how ridiculous our political system is.
Exactly.
And how ridiculous our population is. Us, all of us.
Yeah.
It points at how silly we are, because what that would mean, first of all, Biden's only been in office for a year.
A year.
Okay.
True.
So I don't know what people really expected him to have accomplished as president more than what he has accomplished, given what the Congress is. I don't know, but okay, people have their expectations. But one of those expectations, I don't think realistically can be, I'm not going to run for re-election. Who does that in the first year? You still got 3 more years to go.
Yeah, like I said, I'm 99% certain he's going to run again. But if for some reason he said, hey, I'm getting too old for this, I want to retire from politics totally, she's in.
That's in. When you do that, though,
they
heading into your 3rd year.
I'm not saying that. I agree with what you're saying. But if what I'm seeing is anywhere correct, unfortunately, I'm in a lot of Democratic Facebook groups. I don't know how I got in them. Somehow they thought I was a good person, but oh, well, whatever. I'll just stay in them as long as they have me.
You're in there with a lot of latte liberals, and they love.
I'm like, they're just all like, well, Hillary would be great if she's this and that. Like, what? She lost the first time she lost. I'll say it's partially because, 67% of white Americans vote Republican. Can we just say that out loud? 67% of Republicans vote white. For some reason, they keep chasing this person called the swing voter, which I'm like, that doesn't stop chasing the swing voter. It doesn't exist.
Because you got to look at those people. Those people, think about it now. The ones who make those decisions are one, white.
Yes.
So when they look at the electorate, they can't help but look at it from their own points of view. Even if they educate themselves or whatever they want to do, they're still who they are. So they have to believe that if I could see the light, so can they. So they spend all their money and all their energy trying to reach that magical unicorn of a swing voter that doesn't truly exist. Instead of maximizing a depressed, suppressed, and irritated young minority, across the board minority group.
Okay, if what you're saying is true, then the Democratic Party is the stupidest party I've ever heard of, because that's, to me, that's dumb. If I'm running a race, I already got common sense to say 67% of white people are not going to vote for me. Okay, they're off the table. So common sense would tell me, okay, let me concentrate on my LGBTQ community, my Black community, my poor white community, my Latino community. Let me concentrate on them and getting that turnout to be enough where I can just bypass that 6. That's what common sense tells me.
That's a hard way though. It's the right way, but it's the hard way. Because now you got to legislate. See what I'm saying?
That's what you're running for office to do.
That's not. That's what they should be running the office to do.
Yeah, you should.
What they run for office to do is what Nancy Pelosi just said, which is it's okay if you're able to trade stocks as a congressman who has access to inside information.
In my ideal world, you should. If you're running for office, you should be running to legislate. Why am I running? Well, I'm running so I can trade stock. But I'm just like, wait a minute, y'all can't. The Democrats cannot be that stupid. They can't be. Like,
you run to satisfy the rich. That's what you run. You don't run to satisfy the little voter. That only time you see the politician is when they want your vote.
Yeah, that's another problem.
Now we can go back to business, to making rules that will benefit rich people, and we'll trickle something down to you, let you keep your EBT card or something like that. But they're legislating stuff that benefits the rich, or anything that could benefit lesser marginalized and stuff. Either it doesn't exist or it's not going to pass.
I'm sorry, Charles. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that human nature is to seek the path of least resistance. So think about, take money off the table for a second and say on one side, you have 10 people who you need to represent and you need to find some level of consensus with, or you can choose to represent 1,000 people who each have their view that you need to find consensus with. Now, what's the easiest one to work with?
It would be the 100.
Right, it would be the smaller group. So the smaller group is able to put as much money together, if not more, than the entire large group. So the path of least resistance says, let me come over here where I only have to push 3 or 4 agenda items, or even better yet, because that small group is already doing well, all I have to do is try to keep things the same.
Yep.
Versus that large group over there, that's like walking into a high school cafeteria. It's just loud because everybody over there has a grievance and a need. And I can't find a consensus because the Black group is trying to get what they need, which conflicts in some way with what the LGBTQ community's group is trying to get, which conflicts with what the women's group is trying to get, which conflicts with the Latino group over here, which breaks out 50 different ways.
Why? Because we don't communicate.
Yeah, because I'm sorry to interrupt, Charles, but I gotta slightly disagree with you, Steve, on one thing. I think those groups do have something in common.
Oh, they have a lot in common.
They have a lot in common. So why can't
but we each are aggrieved, and we're not going to sit there and say, yeah, you go first.
Yeah,
I
but
think we can all go first.
you realize you all in the same boat, you know,
Yeah, it's like we're in
it
the
doesn't
same
make
boat.
a difference what you have in common, you know. If you have this boat over here, it's a little bit bigger than this boat over here, you know, y'all still in the same situation, but you won't realize it and come together and bond and form some type of unity. It's more of us than it is of them. But
Never disagreed
we're
with
so
that.
divided. We're so divided that, you know, we can't come together.
So the point that I'm making is not about what's right and wrong. I'm not talking about hypotheticals of what we would like things to be. I'm saying the reality of the situation on the ground. Because yes, we have a lot in common, but we have a very motivated, powerful, well capitalized small group who holds all of our destinies in their hands. They control your careers, they control where you live, they control your law enforcement, they control your judicial system, they control if you can get married to the person you love, they control if you can go ahead and have a medical procedure just because you're a woman. They control all these different things. So all they have to do is pull a lever here or there, and now we will end up fighting amongst each other because we all have very serious needs. For example, everybody is not overly concerned about voter suppression tactics because they don't all share the same history and it doesn't tug on the same emotional strings. So for me, I'm like, I really almost don't much care what happens with this country if you're going to relegate me to a second class citizenship status, because we've been fighting against being second class citizens since we got here. We are the only ones that you have to reauthorize our ability to vote. We are the ones that you purposely do this gerrymandering and these different tactics of removing and moving poll places. They do that to us. Now, does it also happen to our poor white neighbors, our middle class white neighbors, our Latino neighbors, and all these others? Absolutely, it does. But their history doesn't flag them the same way.
Yeah, that part I can see.
So that's
Yeah.
one thing. And then if we say, well, no, push that because that is critical, that is what's absolutely needed. All I got to do is pivot on you and say, well, what about roads and bridges and schools? Now y'all sit down and be quiet. See what I'm saying? So that's like what Charles was sitting on, how we're so divided, but we're divided because they keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah, they keep that part I will agree with you with. But what I'm saying in terms of what Hillary was doing in her why me, why not me, why not me, it's what the Democratic Party is doing now. They keep chasing, like you said, the unicorn swing voter. That it doesn't exist. They have to know that that type of voter doesn't exist. I don't know why they keep thinking it doesn't exist, but yet they'll keep saying, oh, well, if we just speak to them. No, you don't speak to them because they're idiots. You don't. I feel like I'm going to take a page from Nina Turner's book. I'll work with anybody who agrees with the issues that I agree with. And if I agree with their issues, I'll work on them with those. But if you come with some crazy talk, you got to go. She didn't say crazy talk, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing. There are some Republicans I don't want to talk to. I had no use for them. I'm not going to try to get you to vote for Biden or whoever's right. You do you. And I'm going to concentrate on getting these people over here engaged so that your guy doesn't win. That's just me and how I see it.
I'm with you. I'm just saying on a practical level, how do we get there? Because, for example, I think you've heard me say this before, Tracy. I don't care if you like me. I don't care if you agree with me on everything, because I don't agree with everything everybody else has, right? But if we can find a topic or a subject that we do agree on, then let's work on that together. That's a defined purpose. The rest of it we can fight about later.
And it's
hard to do that.
We have to figure out when we're in the same boat. When we come to that, we will be on the track to unity. But long as we think we're different from each other, then we won't have that unity. That the rich, they have that unity. But you know, until we come, until we understand we all in the same boat together, then nothing's gonna change. It's not gonna
Yeah.
But what boat are we in together?
change. That this is about the rich against the not rich. That's basically it. You know, like you say, they make the rules and stuff, you know, but you by unifying yourself, you have the power to take that away from them. But we won't do that until we come together. Not just, like I say, Black people, you know, we just can't do it all ourselves because we don't even have enough. And then you take away the fact that not all Black people agree with the same ideas. You know, we don't, you know, you got your Black Republicans, so you pretty much know where their heads are. So, you know, but you still have the poor whites, and like you say, the Latinos, gay, you know, it's enough there to overcome the rich. But until we come together, you know, form some kind of unity, some kind of bonding, you know, ideas, talk to each other. You know, we pretty much don't even talk to each other. You can't come to some consensus if you don't even talk to each other.
Yeah, and I would say that I almost agree. It kind of puts me in mind of like the cookie analogy, where let's say each of the three of us represent a different community, right? So let's say that Charles, you represent the Black community. Let's say I represent the LGBTQ community, and Tracy represents the women's community, whatever, right? Three groups. Now, the rich, they have a plate full of cookies, and they walk into a sealed room that we're all kept in. We can't escape it. And they put down one cookie. Okay. Keep in mind, they came in with a full plate. Put down one cookie, and then they leave. Now, in the beginning, we're going to be pretty understanding of each other. We're going to take that cookie, we're going to break it in thirds, most likely. And we're going to continue doing that until the hunger continues to build in us. Now, a third of a cookie ain't getting it no more. Eventually, as that plays out, we will begin to fight against each other. And when Tracy hits me to fight for a scrap of cookie, it does not matter who put me in that room. It does not matter that the person with all the food only left a slim piece for us to fight over. What does matter is that there's not enough food, I'm getting weaker, and she hit me. And I now have a legitimate gripe against her and the one who put me in this room. But I can reach her. So now we have that really going on. So I agree with the standpoint of rich and not rich. But so long as the other fights are real,
yeah, because
we still got to fight them. Racism is still real. It was not the rich white guy stringing up Black people on trees. It was poor white guys. It's not some imaginary rich person who is killing or degrading or breaking down people for being gay. No, that's your own uncle. That's your own pastor. That's your own whatever in your family. So it's like we still have those fights. So it's like, how do we find some level of where we can work together, given we also have some problems with each other?
Yeah, I think what you guys are talking about is coalition building. And that coalition building is not going to be nationwide because Black people are not a monolith, gay people are not a monolith, Jewish people are not a monolith, white people are not a monolith. However, you have to, in your local communities, because that's the only place I think it can happen, you have to build those type of coalitions at the local level. It would be almost difficult to build a nationwide of one block, but it's way easier to build those type of coalitions at your local level and say, hey, we're all gonna come together and get Joe Smith elected because Joe Smith is looking out for all of us. I think that's where you two are leading at, not to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what we need to do is coalition build at the local level, because that's where all government comes from. It's not the Congress like in Washington, D.C. It's your local city councils and your local state legislators that are making all the rules. And
Yep,
so
and they're bending their will
and they're
to
drawing
small
their,
groups of committed, angry citizens.
yep.
You know, so I agree with the coalition building, and I'll take it even further. You start with that, right? So I have, let's say I'm the Black group, and you know, we have our various things. We fight it out, we argue amongst ourselves. We have our chapters across the country, and every so often those chapters come together. We come up with a game plan for the overarching community, and then you know, we vote on a change, leadership, do all the stuff that you do with that kind of thing, right? And then we also have representative meetings with the other groups who are doing the same thing in their own interests or communities. So now you can have a national thing happening because it's happening national, state, and local, completely outside of the political system, because it's all based on issues and needs. Now, here's where I say we're still in America. What has America shown us that it will do when you do that?
They're gonna come and tear it down because they're American.
Right.
We Americans.
Or buy out, you know, sellouts. We have that, you know, that's the
That real big problem. We got some sellouts.
So long as you have a starving population, you will always have someone who is hungry enough to be bought. And their job is to find just those few people, and they'll do it. My case is that is absolutely true. I agree with those things, and we still have to do it anyway.
Yep, that part I do agree with. Well, we're gonna move to our last subject of the broadcast, and that is the state of Florida. I know sometimes me and Charles and I talked about states that want to succeed, and I was like, Texas and Florida need to go away and go by because I can't with them. Now, Governor Kiss Trump Butt DeSantis is introducing a stay. It's called Stay Woke or Stay Sleep or whatever it's called. It's a bill that would ban the teaching of critical race theory in schools. Not to mention that it's not even taught in schools. But he decides to introduce this. How can people be this miseducated not to know that this isn't even taught in schools? How do you not know that?
They don't even know what CRT is.
Oh, he knows what it is. He knows exactly.
No, he doesn't. He may or may not know, but the people he's talking to have no clue.
I'm like, how do you not know that this is not taught in schools? How do you not know that?
They know what's not. They know what's taught in school, because what's taught in school is basically not just for educational purposes. Is for orientation of where you should stand in life. You know, that's probably why, you know, what they want, or what they're trying not to have taught in school is they don't want that taught. They don't want their history, their ugly history taught in school. God, I mean, I'm trying to imagine the backlash, but the information is out there. If you want to know, you can go get it. You can go find it out for yourself. You don't even need to be taught. You know, you need to learn. You need to because whatever the teacher teaches you, some kind of way, Black people fit it in there, but they don't have them in there. So if you know what he's teaching you, you go back and question him. You know, he's gonna have to answer you or something. You know, everybody in the class gonna wonder, Well, now you've been challenged. What you gonna do? Send me to the principal's office? So, we got to take responsibility and make sure that our kids are educated, because education starts at home. It don't start in that classroom.
Yeah. So I'll put it like in a nutshell in this way, like everything that you just said. But I remember now first a little bit about my background. I grew up as a military kid. I've lived all various places around the country and the world. And I've always been very much assimilated and integrated into white culture, white society, mainly American patriotism, right? That's the overarching orientation, as you put it, that I grew up in, right? And I was 30 was the first time that I even heard of Marcus Garvey. Okay. So I remember I went to my father and I said, Dad, why didn't you teach me these things? Because my dad grew up Montgomery, Alabama, Jim Crow South. Okay. So he knows personally a lot of this history. And he said to me, similar to what you had just said, Charles, well, the information's out there, you can go get it. My thing is, you don't know to ask the question that you don't know to have a question about.
Yep.
So with CRT, the people who are against it, they're against the idea of how it makes them feel about it. See, slavery is this quaint thing, right? We just acknowledge that it's horrible, and we acknowledge that it happened back then. And we look at the Black people around us now, and they don't fit any of the caricatures of what we were taught about slaves. So it becomes ancient history. What people are afraid of with CRT, even though they don't understand it, is what more will we have to learn? And then when my children start to learn it, I'm not equipped to teach it. So now I end up feeling bad, and they don't like to feel bad, because you start letting me walk you through what happened with the Freedmen's Bureau and what happened when it was disbanded, and start walking through how these different cities and the highways and everything is structured. Yeah, it ain't gonna be flattering.
You know what I'm going to say? They can miss me with their feelings, because, and it's called the Stop Woke Act. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And then he had nerve to invoke Dr. Martin Luther King, but I'm going to just let that,
They always do that.
They always do that. But here's the problem with it. I don't care if you feel bad. I'm not saying you did it. I'm saying your ancestors did it. Doesn't have anything to do with you. I know you did. I told people who are white this all the time. I'm not saying you owned slaves. I'm saying your ancestors owned slaves. I'm not saying that you wouldn't let Black people drink out of whatever water fountain that they wanted to. I'm saying your ancestors did that. Now, of course, if you already have racist thoughts and are doing racist activities, that's going to include you. But if you yourself know that you don't harbor hate in your heart for Black people, because this is what this bill is about, then why should I even care that upsets you? It should upset you.
Yeah, because it's upsetting us.
Yeah, it should upset you that your ancestors had slaves. And you know what you should say? I don't want to be like that. I'm going to do this. And I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to be racist like them. I don't understand where that shift in their mind when they hear critical race theory is like they just want to deny the whole thing that Black people went through. I'm like, no, you cannot do that.
Well, I think the first thing is,
but they can deny it, but you can't lie to yourself. They know their history. They know their history is nothing but violence. Okay, ever since since they set foot on this continent, it's been nothing but violence. the Constitution was written for white people, by white people, of white people. It had nothing to do with black people. Yeah, they made us an amendment to the Constitution. They even lied, said they abolished slavery, but they didn't abolish slavery. You read the 13th Amendment, the 13th Amendment legitimizes slavery. It says if you're in prison, we can treat you like a slave. That's the only place the federal government or the governments have the right to own people. Okay, that's basically it. They put you in jail, they can do whatever they want to with you when they put you in prison. I tell people, read the 13th Amendment and skip all the words before the word accept, because it starts off with it abolishes slavery, and then it says except in the case of servitude as a punishment
of a crime. Yep.
Fine. So that means that it's still slavery. So who do we put in there? Mostly black people. That's who they were snatching off the streets. Vagrancy law. Just come up with any stupid law, or just make it up as they go along. To put a black person back into slavery.
Yeah.
But then they'll do white people. All white people didn't own slaves. It's very small population of white people that owned slaves. Like you say, the ones that were out there lynching black people probably didn't even own a slave. They were probably poor themselves. They were probably jealous because this black person just might have a little bit more than they had, But again, that's what I'm saying. We're all in the same boat, but we won't realize we're in the same boat, so we will never come together.
Yeah, I feel you. And personally, I know I'm a differ on this particular point, because at this stage, I don't really care to come together. I have work that I need to do to get us stronger, so that when we come together, we can come together on a more equal footing. But I don't think we're there yet. And I think one of the major things with CRT is, and it's probably because we don't control our own media, and because the conservative movement is so disciplined and well practiced, CRT never should have become a black-white thing. Never should have been.
Nope.
Because what it's basically doing is uncensoring whiteness. It's saying, in addition to your story, include other groups, plural stories. And then how do those all come together to define the systems and the society and the culture that we currently reside in? And that means you would have had to start talking about the Japanese experience, the Filipino experience, the El Salvadorian experience. You would have been looking at all of these different constructs. But the conservatives are so good at this that they know that their population doesn't want to be informed. It wants to be led. And because they just want to be led, we can use emotion. And that's what they did. They want you to think that if you allow CRT to be brought anywhere near your precious little darlings, that will unravel everything that has to do with the patriotism and the love of America the beautiful. And that's what they're fighting against. They don't even know anything else.
They have no idea what it is.
That you're going against the patriotism code.
They just
but
think
we know it. We know it now. I mean, it's
a lot of us don't know it either.
Yeah, a lot of us like, ooh.
CRT hadn't even been that idea hadn't even been presented. We wouldn't know what we know now, okay? Because we just went on with school just the way the status quo. This is the way it's been done. This is the way we're going to continually do it, Yeah, they don't want us to know their history. They don't want us to know our own history. But now that we know what we know, we can educate ourselves. These kids can educate themselves. They don't need the teacher to do that for them. All they need to do is take responsibility for learning. Don't just sit there and let somebody tell you something and then you run with it. You know, you find out, is this person telling the truth, the whole truth? You know, because I'm hearing something different. You know, I'm hearing about this CRT. Let
The
me
only-
investigate
You know,
that
I'm
further.
gonna have to slightly disagree because the only I'm gonna go back to Theus's point. As a Black child, I was like in my 20s when I learned about the Japanese internment camps. I knew about Black history stuff because my parents taught it to me. I knew nothing. What I learned about Cuba, oh, they're communists, they're evil. I didn't know that's where people in disingenuous communities fled to because the government was falsely persecuting them.
But why? Because you didn't have the availability to.
I didn't have the curiosity. I didn't know that I needed to learn that until someone pointed it out to me. So, and I get what you're saying. You could research.
Right, but
now
now
you get to that.
you can push a button and get all the information that you need.
I'm not saying that
You
you
didn't
can't.
have that. You didn't have that.
But you
Okay.
have to have the question in your
You had to, I
mind
agree with
to go
Thea.
do that.
You
And
had to
that's
have
where
the
the
question.
power of a structure comes in. See,
But
we
you-
send our children, oh, one moment, we send our children to indoctrination centers, and they start from 6 years old all the way until the time that they're 18. So they are being put into a system where we have signed off on the credibility of this thing that we trust our children to. And then, yes, I teach my children a lot about who they are, where they come from, and all those things. But that's from my perspective as well. I'm one person. So it's like every family can't do what I do. Every family doesn't have my background. They don't have my competency. They don't have the time. So we have to fight back about what's happening in the schools because the schools are pushing a lie as truth. And then we come as one-offs saying no. There's more to it.
Yeah, because like I said, I was in my 20s when I learned about Japanese internment camps. I was in my 30s when I learned about the Filipino experience. Nobody taught me to be, I was never curious enough to say, oh, let me just go learn about what happened in Cuba in the American experience, or how the media purposely casted Cuba as this evil empire. Nothing I had no questions. So I have to agree with Diaz on that point. If you don't have the natural curiosity, how is it that you're going to learn? Yes, I agree with they can get things by Google searching, but how are they going to even think, oh, gee, I need to research this if it's never ever being taught in schools? If you
And
never,
how do they make sure they don't pull the wrong link and end up pulling up a PragerU accounting of slavery?
That was the other thing, because everything on Google is not gospel truth. Everything on Google is not the
I
gospel truth.
understand, but that's why you have to research. You know, I don't mean just go get one thing and say this is the truth too.
No,
but
yeah, we're not saying that, but we're just saying, how do you get that natural curiosity? Say, you know what? I'm going to learn about the indigenous population when you've never had any type of Listen, now let's keep this real. We know we get 1 month out, well, the indigenous population does too. We know we got Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday and we got Black History Month. We know there are medium forums where you could get something on Black history every single day of the year. You can't do the same thing with the indigenous population unless you made up in your mind, I'm going to do it. I'm just saying, how do you get to that point where you're going to say, oh, I'm going to research this community who I'm not a part of because I'm not being taught that in school.
And the only structure that can do that
teach
is
it
the
in
school
school
system.
Yeah,
because they're the ones who touch everybody.
Yeah,
because
And they have your kids 8 hours a day or 7, whatever it is they go to school. They have them sometimes longer than their parents, who unfortunately have to work 2 jobs because the system stinks. So why not teach that in school? And then they could do their own research. Like when they're learning about the Japanese internment camp, they can definitely go do their research. But I'm saying put it in schools, because the parents, 9 times out of 10, I know my parents didn't teach me anything about the Japanese internment camp.
Not only that, Tracy, but now bring it into the real world of a 15-year-old child. You telling me you can get the typical 15-year-old child to, on top of everything else that they deal with and what they're being taught in school, to proactively
They're not going
go
to
and learn about World War II and all of its intricacies. That ain't gonna happen.
That's just
Like,
not. Yeah, and the average parent, not that I'm a parent and I would know, the average parent is not saying that, in World War II, that the soldiers face a lot of discrimination if they weren't white. What parent is having that conversation? Well, what parent is having a World War II conversation with their child, period, no matter what race they are? And second, like I said, parents don't have the time with their children I agree with you, Charles. Education starts at home. But when that sometimes single parent is out working 2 jobs because the rent or the mortgage is like $1,000 or $1,500, and they gotta live and they gotta eat, that education has to come from somewhere, and it's gotta start with the schools.
And I would even revise it to say that the love of education starts at home.
Yes, now love of education, absolutely.
One of the things that I took away from what Charles was saying is something that I was actually gifted with because of the education I did get in middle school and high school, was how to research and how to study. There's an art to this. And I don't know that my parents are very intelligent, but I don't know that in the midst of parenting, they would have taught me how to study.
Right. Because you know why? Life gets in the way. Life gets in the way when you're dealing with, I got to put food on the table. I got to pay for a roof over my head. I got to make sure the heat is on, the gas is on, the water is on. Life gets in the way. In most of these cases, I'm not saying that parents don't want to do it, but they may not have the know-how of how to do it because they came from crappy schools. So I'm just saying the schools need to teach it. But you're right, Charles. Education starts at home. I 1000% agree with that.
So in the meantime, the schools are fighting against teaching it. The households are not all that equipped to teach it.
Is it? It's
just DeSantis.
No, it is the schools.
Yeah, it is the
because CRT, first of all, is a upper level, like master's and
it's a master's
legal
class.
Course.
You in high school. What you gonna?
So it ain't happening. But they're using CRT as a the word just escaped me, but it's a scapegoat, basically, to basically push against any revision of how history is currently taught. And so it's like they're just using that as the boogeyman to really deflect from the underlying issue, because no one is trying to teach your child the intricacies of American law and how it was structured by the systematic discrimination against other cultures. That's not what they're teaching you in 5th grade. Okay.
Yeah, they're not. Maybe they should be, but they're not.
Right. But what they should be teaching you is an age-appropriate explanation of historical events, so that we can stop teaching the Puritan, what some people call the Mayflower people, the Pilgrim story. So we can stop teaching that the way that we teach it. So
the Pilgrims were perfect. I don't know what you're talking about, Steve. They were
right. Perfect. These are the things that need to be done, but they're very hard to do now because CRT is the boogeyman.
Right. And you look at the state of Texas, and this will be the last thing because we got to move to our last segment. You look at the state of Texas that has gone so far as to basically whitewash history. That's literally what they're doing, want to do in their school books now.
Yeah, we were a guest worker program.
Yes, slavery. Now we were indentured servants, and we had it well, and we sang and danced and tap danced and ate cornbread and did all these. Aren't white people great? And again, we're not saying that current white people are evil. I'm not saying that, but you have to look at your history and learn the good side of your history, but you also have to learn the bad side of your history and learn not to repeat it, because of only a fool would ignore their history because they'll be bound. I know that's not the right quote, but they'll be bound to repeat it.
But if repeating it puts you in a better position or preserves your position,
yeah, that's the problem with that too.
Then is it really that bad to repeat?
Yeah, that's another part.
So yeah, so it's like for us who are not white men, because that's who sits at the top of this pyramid, and then it kind of comes down from there. For them, yeah, I mean, when I take a step back at our U.S. history and I look at where we are right now, we are in a similar time frame of the 60s. Well, if you never learned your history,
yeah, you're gonna be.
You don't know what came before the 60s, which is where we're headed. You see what I mean? You just think this is a rough spot. And so that's why the lessons of history have to be taught, so that when it starts to echo, you hear it.
Yeah. But so final segment, and we had a really good discussion. I didn't even talk about the January 6th. I'm not going to speak about it because I'm just like, why is y'all wasting my money? But on Tracy Takes On, we have a segment called the Idiot of the Week. Since these you're not so familiar with it, I'll let you go second. But Charles, who is your Idiot of the Week?
I hadn't even really gave it no thought.
Okay, then I'll go with mine.
Meadows would be my Idiot of the Week.
Oh, dang, you took mine.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure it's more people out there, but
I missed the name.
All over this January.
Mark Meadows is who he said.
Mark Meadows, yeah, the chief of staff, who was. It's not just so much Mark Meadows. It's people when they email stuff, and if you don't want somebody to see something, you shouldn't put it in an email, because once you email something, you don't have no control over
where it goes.
And then it comes back and bites you. Now you done lied about it, but now all of a sudden your emails are exposed and you just left standing there looking stupid or like an idiot.
And as we know, you're new to the segment. So if you don't have one, that's okay. But if you do, that'd be even better.
I'm trying to think of a person, because it's a person, right?
It can be.
So maybe I think this is the news moves so fast. I'm gonna say Laura Ingraham.
Oh yes.
Because in 1 week we've had her text messages and from the Meadows thing, which contradicts all of her stuff, and the Christmas tree thing. So it was like she's more representative of Fox, but yeah, that would be like mine. Just the hypocrisy on full display on all levels. It's just wow.
Well, my Idiot of the Week is got to be Mr. Stone. I think his first name is the one that Trump pardoned. Roger Stone. Yeah. Okay, he did the whole I plead the fifth thing, but then you're telling the public you're innocent. So here's what I don't understand. If I'm innocent, truly innocent, why am I taking the fifth again? Probably because I'm guilty of something. Why? I don't get this whole, I'm going to take the fifth because I have nothing to hide. Really? I mean, yes, you have the legal right to take the Fifth Amendment. It's in the Constitution. But then
I thought that if you were pardoned, that you weren't allowed to take the fifth.
He took it. He
No,
took,
so I mean, we gotta wait and see. Congress, to me, Congress is just like a tiger with no teeth. They talk all this smack and then they do nothing. Uh,
I wonder where
some
what
people
party you
need
could be
to
talking about.
some people need to be going to jail for the stuff they've done. I mean, you're in contempt of Congress. So what does that mean? If you aren't going to snatch this person out of his house and hold him in jail until he comes around, you don't do anything. So you just empty threats are just a waste of time. But then again, I would be careful what I said in Congress because it's possible that, criminal charges could be brought up against me. I'm not going to sit there and incriminate myself in Congress. That's why I said this whole thing should have been in criminal court.
Well, here's the problem with what you're saying, Charles. First of all, you just said it. Congress has no backup. He took the fifth, and they didn't. They just okay, that's fine. What? So yeah, Roger Stone is my idiot of the week, and everybody watching this podcast, you know what I do. I did it last year where I count down top 10. This year, it's probably going to be 20 because there's some people that just stood out. So that special will be coming next week. This is the last broadcast for Tracy Takes On the Progressive Queens, and probably Thursdays with Tracy until January the 17th of 2022. I want to thank everyone for watching this podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and support us on our Patreon. We've got a lot of things coming for 2022. Thank you guys for coming and have a great day.
Thank you, Tracy.